say the names of everyone who is here. And if I'm missing anyone, please let me know. So we have Gloria Nelson.
Here.
Rick Johnson.
Here.
Steve Lafferty.
Here.
Amy Mante.
Here.
Amy Menzer.
Here.
Jessica Lilly.
Here.
Letitia Braxton.
Here.
Nick Stagerwald.
Here, sorry.
Emery Wang.
Here.
Lori Hay.
Here.
Marta Kolchitska.
Here.
And Shirley Gregory. I'm not sure if Shirley's, oh, there you are. Hi, Shirley. All right. That being said, I'd like to open the floor to Steve Lafferty, our Director of Department of Planning, to say a few words.
Thank you, Jesse. I'll be really quick. Thank you, everybody, for being part of this meeting tonight, particularly those who are volunteers. Gloria, good to, I don't see you, but good to be in your company again. But particularly the community volunteers are so critical to making this process successful. And I know all of you invested a lot of time and energy and thought into how we can make sure that the design guidelines for Dundalk are really strong and really look to the future. So I just want to say hello to everybody and thank Jesse and the team for helping to move this forward, but more importantly, to thank the volunteers for all of their engagement. So thanks, Jesse, for giving me a moment. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And yes, thank you all for taking the time on another evening for another virtual meeting to get through these guidelines. All right, I'll just jump right into it. You all were emailed the Dundalk Design Guidelines draft. This is very much a working document. My hope is that it did incorporate the feedback I received, and I did take some creative liberty to fill the gaps. My hope is that this will be a document that we can use to push back on, to agree with, to want more of, to want less of. So please feel free to be candid with your critique as we get into the nitty-gritty. And with that, I will share my screen. Okay, can everyone see the title page?
Yes.
Okay. Any issues with the title page? Okay, and I thought it was, kind of a view of the historic Main Street, but kind of heading south, which is also the direction of the expansion, proposed expansion of the commercial revitalization district. And again, these are, recommendations, these are guidelines. It's gentle language. In terms of the table of contents, so there's the introduction pages, the map showing the boundary, and then the categories go from the storefront facade guidelines, which was provided, which drew heavily from Dundalk Renaissance Corporation's facade guidelines. So that was pretty much taken directly with some additions made. And then other categories are materials and techniques for renovation and new construction, identity and culture, streetscape, and then the appendix. Are there any just like broad categories that you feel are missing or should be worded differently? That being said, I provided, a little background about this process we've been through in the introduction. I listed off all of the stakeholders, all of you who have been present and devoting your time to this process. And then I'll just kind of read the little timeline here. The advisory committee met several times over the course of 5 months to 1, define design guidelines for Dundalk's commercial revitalization district. 2, reassess the geographic boundaries of the commercial revitalization district. And 3, establish a shared understanding of the design review panel's value and its process. The input provided at these meetings resulted in a proposed expansion of the CRD to include larger and more contemporary properties further south along Dundalk Avenue. Advisory committee feedback and the revised boundary form the content and scope of these guidelines. Does that seem like an accurate representation? I know I came in late into the process, so does that capture the essence of what we've been working on in your perspective? I'll take silence to mean yes. Okay. And then for the purpose and goals, I did take some of this from the Storefront Facade guidelines because it was worded so well. Dundalk is a unique community with a rich history tied to the Patapsco Neck region, the 1814 Battle of North Point, the Port of Baltimore, and Bethlehem Steel. Its heritage has earned it a place on the National Register of Historic Places for being one of the first retail centers built in America. The purpose of the Dundalk Design Guidelines is to celebrate that history and culture while also reflecting contemporary needs and tastes of the community. This document builds upon the excellence of Dundalk's existing storefront facade guidelines, adding criteria for new construction, sustainability, cultural display, and streetscape design. The guidelines pertain to an expanded commercial revitalization district boundary that moves south of the historic Main Street to include additional properties along Dundalk Avenue. The goals of the Dundalk Design Guidelines are as follows: to establish guidelines for commercial revitalization that reflect Dundalk's sense of place and foster community engagement, and 2, to ensure the creation and maintenance of a high quality and sustainable commercial built environment, landscape, and streetscape. That was a lot of content right there. How is that landing with folks?
It's good.
Good, okay. And I'll zoom in on this map so that folks can see the proposed boundary expansion. So the original pieces are up here. It was asked that we incorporate the historic churches just south of the historic Main Street area because of the, well, you know, there may be development potential in the future. Also, they are a good touchstone for historic architecture that should be reflected and respected in future development, perhaps. This was the, oh, help me here. This is, it's not VFW. It's like a entertainment.
American Legion.
Thank you, American Legion building. Yeah. So a very large property there. And then the Logan Village Shopping Center and the establishments on the Turner Station side of the traffic circle at the south end of Dundalk Avenue. Does this reflect all of the expansion that we talked about before? Any comments or concerns?
It does reflect what we've talked about. It strikes me that the Joe's Auto, which is directly across the roundabout from the two sites, the sites in Turner Station that you highlighted. So it's at that same intersection that it would seem, and I'm sorry that I didn't notice this, but it would seem odd to zero in on one parcel at an intersection and not the other commercial parcels in that intersection. And one other thought along those lines to think about would be at the very top end of the boundary where there's that little like triangle cheese wedge at the intersection of Dundalk Avenue and I think Liberty Parkway. There are some other commercial buildings at the other points of that like 5-way or 6-way intersection there. I don't know if it makes, but I'm just raising the question, just to complicate your life, as to whether those should be included.
Amy, I wrote, this is Gloria. I do think that at the circle, turn roundabout and Turners and Dundalk Avenue, all of those businesses that's there, I did not mention Joe's, but I certainly thought that it would be included because it is within the parameters of the other two. So Amy, if you could maybe reach out to expand it, just across the street. It's still in visual, it's still right there with the others. When you come to that circle, you see boom, one on the left side as you're coming from Solace Fort Road and Merritt Boulevard, if you're coming from that way into Turners. And then the dog house and the other establishment is on the other side. So it would make sense.
Okay, so I'm writing comments here that we should add Joe's Auto Shop at the traffic circle. And Amy, am I capturing this? You were wondering if maybe this cheese wedge at the top needs to be incorporated at all?
No, I think that intersection where the cheese wedge is pointing to, so it's Liberty Parkway and Dundalk Avenue. It's sort of Liberty Parkway, Dundalk Avenue, Solars Point Road, and then I think Liberty becomes Pine Avenue across the street, across Dundalk Avenue. There are things, there are commercial entities on virtually all of those little wedges. Slices of pie, if that's more what you're in the mood for. And I just think it's just a question. I get it that this was probably not what was initially envisioned, was, you know, incorporating all these additional things, but there have been some concerns about some of the other parcels in terms of, you know, and it could be a way to incentivize nicer facades.
Also, under that little strip of unit where she's talking on the wedge, if you come down where the point is, that point should go all the way to Santa Helena Avenue.
So if we're going south from the point, you're saying like the base of that triangle?
No, the other point.
The other.
I
I see.
This point right here, I can't show you, so it's where
So north
like
of the point.
where the Royal Farm Store is,
Okay.
going down to
So-
Santa Helena Avenue, because there's businesses
Yes,
all the way to the Baptist church.
the Main Street boundary includes that area.
Right. Well, no, it's not covering it on my side. It doesn't go to Santa Helena. I'm trying to see it, but it's so small, but it doesn't look like it's
Sorry.
going to Santa Helena Avenue. It looks like
It
it
isn't
stopped at,
now, but I think the official Main Street boundary goes to St. Helena Avenue.
okay,
The
okay.
state's
good.
Main Street
Oh,
boundary.
I see. Okay, so
I
this,
see, okay,
you're saying this section
yeah,
here.
okay.
Yeah,
Then you're good. Because the rest of that property is houses, so,
but you want to include the buildings that are on St. Helena Avenue because there's some commercial stuff there.
Got
correct.
it.
To go down Santa Helena, even though there's a church residing in one of the buildings, there's other commercial entities up St. Helena Avenue. Only in the 100 block.
Okay, so include the commercial properties down to St. Helena Avenue from the top.
Yeah, the 100 block of St. Helena Avenue.
Okay. Really helpful input. Any other comments or questions or concerns about what was just discussed? All right. And I'll move right along. Okay, so this is getting into the storefront facade guidelines. So I did, reference the Dundalk Main Street facade design guidelines that were produced by DRC in 2015. Now, Amy, you mentioned that perhaps, with these guidelines, there's a question of whether you need both guidelines. Do you want to speak a little bit more to that point?
Well, I think you've basically incorporated what's in our document. And so I don't know that we need both. I think the only question would be when is the design review panel triggered versus when is it something that DRC can just administer on its own? And I think I would just need we talked about that several months ago, but I think I would just need a little refresher on that to know whether there may be things that we want to, it could be that we prepare a much simpler document that we hand out to anybody working in our main, doing work in the main street that then refers people to these design guidelines, but then also has more supporting materials if need be. But I don't want to I think it would be potentially confusing to have point people in two different directions, but I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. And I was a little, I felt funny about incorporating so heavily the guidelines that
I'm not complaining. I'm more just, I don't think it's bad. I just think there's no need to have, I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No, I agree with you. I certainly don't want things to be confusing. Perhaps since, there is a storefront facade section of, this guideline that pulls pretty directly from what you had before, as long as you agree with how it looks in this document, perhaps that could be the reference point for, Main Street facade improvements. If you think that makes more sense, but also happy to keep it in here as an appendix and refer, folks to your organization with questions about that specific program.
Well, maybe we can talk, a little bit after this, just to clarify, because I don't want to take up everybody's time with just, understanding when is a design review triggered, and, are there smaller things that a business can do that won't trigger that, just trying to, I think maybe figure that out would be helpful to just understand that. And then I think if there's a way for you to refer people to us and any funding we have, if you're able to do that, that would be helpful, since I think sometimes people may go to the county government and not even be aware that we're here. But, if you can't refer people to us, I get that. So
that is a very good question. I guess I would, Lori or Amy, do you all have any insights on, I guess
it's similar to what we do, in other districts, and, specifically Towson. We have a, kind of a tiered approach as far as what bigger or kind of more encompassing projects need to go to the full design review panel, and projects that are smaller, like maybe getting a new sign, really can go through what we call administrative review, which is just our design review panel staff and maybe the chair of the design review panel. I think that it would be our intention to try to incorporate someone from the DRC, especially, whether it's somebody from your Main Street Design Committee or some other person, just to make sure that you are aware of it, of the project, and two, so that they would also be aware of, financing and incentives and things that you have to offer. I mean, that's sort of, kind of the purpose of these design guidelines in these Main Street communities, is to make that tie across those two kind of worlds, the county and then the Main Street organization that has these things to offer. So, in as much as we wanted to include you in updating these and really move this part of it forward, we would absolutely want to include you moving forward.
Well, and I think the other piece where we could be helpful is kind of just holding the business owner's hand, so to speak.
Absolutely.
And, helping to walk them through the process with the county so that it's less intimidating, all of that. So,
and we would be relying on you to, notice that a new business owner was wanting to do something, or having had some conversation with them, and being able on your end to educate and inform, to a point, or bring them, to the county in a partnership, that you guys were helping them kind of figure it out. So, it would be good for you guys to be aware of the process on our end as well, so that you can educate and inform and help folks too.
Sounds good. Then, I mean, based on everything you just said, I don't think we need to have two documents. I think we should just have the one, since the county's design guidelines would supersede anything we would offer anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there should just be one.
Okay. Well, then we'll make sure it meets all your hopes and dreams. Okay, moving along. So again, this is pulled pretty directly from the storefront facade guidelines. The storefront entrances provide a welcoming environment to customers and allow for easy movement inside and out. They aid in establishing the style and unique character of a building. So recommended items are to fit the scale of the entrance within the architectural framework of historic buildings, take care to maintain original historic doorways, locate the door prominently and make it accessible to people of all abilities, allow for easy viewing into the store, locate loading and services entrances to the rear or side of the building, and locate side entrances as close to the street front as possible. Discouraged are blocking entrances with merchandise, locating entrances at the rear or side of the building, and installing doors of opaque materials such as metal or wood that would prevent viewing inside. Are there any other ideas or issues with what's listed here? And I just try to do a little visual of, one of the points for both the recommended and discouraged in all these categories. So you can see that this entrance allows for easy viewing. And here we have merchandise that's blocking the part of the entrance. All right. Oh, sorry. Was that somebody? Okay. And please feel free to interrupt me at any point. So for display windows enhance the business and make products more appealing to customers. A well-designed display highlights a business's unique personality and draws the attention of passerby. So recommended is to preserve the original windows of historic buildings to the greatest extent practicable. Preserve the original size, division, and shape of historic windows. Maintain clean and highly transparent glass. And discouraged is using dark tinted or textured glass, using small paned windows, blocking windows with lowered ceilings, and leaving display windows empty or undersigned. Under designed. I'm glad I'm reading this out loud. Under or undesigned. That's okay. Any comments, questions about this display windows page or other ideas?
Well, I do note that the picture, the do picture has a front entrance with steps, so it's not ADA.
Good.
That's gonna happen. I mean, there are conditions in, I actually don't know how many conditions there are in the main street where that is an issue, but because most of it is pretty level, but when and if somebody was making an investment, ideally we'd want them to fix that. However, if it's you know, whatever, those lovely
No,
historic / ADA conflicts that I don't exactly know how the county resolves those. So
that's a really great point. So thank you. I can find a better picture. And that's a good question about ADA compliance and historic integrity. I will do a little digging into that. All right.
I know there are a number of doors that aren't 36 inches wide. That I think it would be difficult. It might be difficult to make them 36 inches wide, but
make a note about all that just because I'm curious. All right, thank you. And again, we just have a lot of pages, so I'm just going to read right through these. Please, speak up, interrupt me. Holler. Okay. Transom windows are the horizontal windows above the display. Originally, these windows would provide ventilation and allow for light to enter the building. It's recommended that you maintain similar design and materials to the display windows, retain original pattern and size, even if they can't be seen due to awnings, and maintain operable transom for ventilation. And then it's discouraged to paint over or fill in transom windows with opaque materials or prevent light from entering the store due to lowered ceilings. So you have an image of kind of the clear, similar to the display windows, transom windows. And then here you can see that they're covered with opaque materials and signs.
Jesse, and Amy, I guess this maybe is for you. I'm just curious, how many of the buildings that have transom windows or actually have operable transom windows?
That's a great question. I pulled these straight from the original guidelines. I don't know if Amy and Nick have.
I cannot recall that there's any that have operable transoms. I don't know if Letitia, you have a better recollection. I think where there are transoms that haven't been covered up, they're all fixed transoms that I can recall.
I would agree with that, Amy. I would also like to just ask the question, playing devil's advocate, if I were a new store owner looking at the discouraged picture and I had to put up signage, if that were my store, then my question would be, then where is my signage to go if I can't use, what is available there in that picture where they have the sign on the one corner and then the other is empty?
That's a great point. I know that in the sign page, blade signs are recommended, which are the kind that kind of pop out from and kind of face as you're walking up and down the sidewalk. you could have an awning with signage in select areas, but I'd open the floor to others.
I tend to agree, even though I know this, I think this picture came from DRC's guidelines, but where that transom is already covered up and it's been covered up, I mean, I don't know. You look at that and that looks like where you would put the sign. So you might say, well, you can put a sign there, but we don't want to see just a light box with printing on it. We want something that's more interesting than that.
Yeah, I'll add a comment here. That's a very good point. I think, as a new store owner, you would think that's probably the most advantageous place to put a sign. So I can find a better image. Do you think the points included in the discouraged section should be altered? Or just maybe a different image, one that's, less, and take out the sign piece specifically. So that.
It's tricky because it's like where there's still a transom. I think we want to try to discourage people from covering those over now. But where it's a transom that's been covered for 20 years or more, and there's sort of two routes you could go. You could open it all up and then figure out a new place for a sign, or you could at least make an attractive sign. So using what's already been covered up. And both
Maybe
of those
this, sorry, Amy, maybe this information is more appropriate in the sign section.
That's a good point. But I do like your point, Amy, about if, whether or not the transom has already been covered, that's different. If you have a opaque transom, don't cover it, versus if it's already covered, that's one thing. So I can alter the language to reflect that distinction.
But would the cover transom, would they require the new owner to open it up, try to more inconsistent with the other, they has been not covered yet?
We could put, like, if practicable, if it wasn't like a very permanent change, it's preferable that it's windows.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the kind of thing where, in our experience, ideally you'd reopen it, but often, I mean, where I've seen that is the ceiling has been lowered. There's electrical and lighting and plumbing in the ceiling that would have to all go away or get addressed in order to open up that transom window. And it would be, the store owner who was thinking they were going to spend $15,000 to make their space presentable. Now all of that went to dressing that one transom and didn't do anything else to make the space presentable. So that, I mean, that's where I guess from my perspective, I'd be reluctant to require that, as much as I know that I'm,
And we're definitely using words like recommend, discourage, not required. These are just guidelines. They're not mandates. So we tried to be really careful with that.
Can we also suggest that they try to make the storefront look more original to what it used to look like, instead of it being painted?
Yeah, definitely. And I think for historic buildings especially, you know, or okay, or okay. All right. Any other ideas regarding transom windows? All right. Signs. Okay, so definitely we'll make a point here about, you know, transom signs. And it looks, you know, so like in the picture here, you know, this is a modern building, but you could argue that this would have been a transom and it's a sign where the transom would be. So that was a good point. A sign is one of the most important elements of a storefront. It can successfully express the personality of a business while publicly displaying information. Additionally, signs are powerful graphic tools that can market a business through quick impact. Signs add to the visual interest of the commercial corridor. Recommended are take style and scale of storefront and neighboring buildings into consideration when determining the scale of the sign. Restore historic signs. Design lettering and graphics to complement the character of the storefront. Place signs in clear, architecturally defined areas such as windows, awnings, and sign bands. Use sign blades wherever appropriate. And sign blades are signs like this one here that's kind of sticking out. Make signs of durable, high-quality materials. Illuminate signs from an external light source. So you see the gooseneck lights here. And then maintain changeable copy signs with up-to-date information. Discouraged are leaving signs dilapidated or non-functional, covering windows with signs that take up more than 15% of available window space, obscuring key architectural features with signs, installing internally illuminated or backlit plastic sign boxes, and posting excessive temporary signage, and leaving temporary signs or posters up for prolonged periods of time. Does anything on this page stand out to folks that you'd like to change, emphasize, take out? And I'll just make a note here to provide some guidance for transom signs if the transom is already covered, that, you know. Okay, I'll move right on. Awnings. Awnings protect and shelter pedestrians and display windows from precipitation in the sun. They add depth to the storefront and emphasize entrances and display windows while providing a canvas to emphasize the store's unique character. I said emphasize too much there. I'm just going to mark that. Recommended is to install awnings made of canvas and fire-resistant acrylic materials. If utilizing the awnings for signage, located on the valance, and the valance is the curtain that hangs down from the edge of the awning, like you see in the picture. Install awning that is permanent and fixed in place. Maintain consistency among awnings on a single building in terms of size, profile, and location. And ensure awnings on multiple storefront buildings in the same strip or block are located within each storefront bay and are consistent in character, scale, and location. Discouraged is using vinyl or plastic materials for awnings, obscuring important architectural features or other signage with awnings, locating signage or lettering anywhere other than the transom, posting excessive signage or lettering on the awning, installing retractable or temporary awnings. Any issues with the pictures or the points made in the awnings section? All right, storefront lighting. Lighting illuminates the businesses and creates an evening ambiance. It provides a sense of security for pedestrians and owners by allowing others to see activity both inside and outside of stores. So it's recommended to install lighting that highlights building elements, signs, and other distinctive features. So here you can see kind of lighting also illuminating the awning. Install lighting that is consistent with the architectural style and scale of the storefront. It's recommended to install seasonal festive lighting, use indirect lighting as much as possible, and use gooseneck lighting, which was shown up here, well, up above. This is gooseneck lighting. Discouraged is installing flashing, pulsating, dynamic, or moving lights, installing lights that glare onto streets, public ways, or onto adjacent properties, leaving seasonal lighting up for prolonged periods, and relying on street lighting for store display, which is what you see in the picture. It's a pretty dark storefront facade. It does have a little bit of, an outline of strip lights, but you can see that they're relying pretty heavily on the street lights for illuminating the storefronts. Any issues or questions about storefront lighting? Security. So security is a major concern for most in the retail environment. Some security elements can give the perception that there is a problem with crime, whether or not that is true, which can actually make an area feel less safe. The following security guidelines are intended to be protective without sacrificing a welcoming ambiance. So it's recommended to utilize large, transparent windows and doors to allow for others to visually monitor business safety. Install discrete solutions such as quality locks, internal alarms and notification systems, and laminated safety glass. If roll-down grates are deemed necessary, build them into the interior of the storefront ceiling to conceal them during the day if possible. Decorate the grates to reflect the business or identity of Dundalk. Discouraged is installing solid grates over doors and/or windows, and installing exterior roll-down grates outside the store. And Amy, I think you did have you had some comments here. So there should be more clarity with the photos and guidance for roll-down doors and gates. Okay, so the photo that's discouraged shows open gates, which may be more preferable to the roll-down gate, even though you agree that if there is a roll-down gate, a painting or a mural on it is preferable to having it be blank. So I guess I read the facade guidelines and I interpreted solid grates as meaning kind of permanent, like it always looks like this, even when the building is open, which in my mind presents a fairly unwelcoming, security is an issue at this store.
No, I agree with you. Yeah, I think when I saw that photo, for some reason, I was thinking it was the kind of gate that opens and closes or something. But
Okay.
yeah,
because these are like fixed. I should clarify that though. So I would say fixed. Make that clear.
Yeah, we did have a cigarette store that had like bars on all the windows, and yeah, it was not the right look.
And then you think that the do image might include, sorry, I don't want to put words in your mouth if you want to.
I was just because we're actually trying to discourage people from using the roll down gates.
Yes.
I thought that, well, sure, if you gotta have one for some reason, then doing a mural on it would be great. But we really don't want you to do one. So I thought that the image for the do image should be more like a security camera, like, if there was like a split screen photo that had a security camera and then a well-lit storefront window where, you know, you can clearly see in and out, so that if, you know, if that was just a suggestion, there may be a better way to illustrate that, but
No, I very much agree. I think, you know, if you don't want people to have roll down grates, maybe don't show that as like the, you know, the recommended image example.
I mean, I thought if you gotta have one, that was a good idea, but
Right.
I don't think anybody has one right now, so.
Oh, okay. Well, then let's not encourage it.
There was one on our building when we bought it, but it's gone.
And, you know, I think this actually does show a grate that's exterior to the store, which is also what's not recommended. So I think a different image would be better. Any other ideas regarding security? I know security came up during our meetings leading up to these guidelines.
Lighting. So, and guys, I'm sorry that I'm talking so much, but the previous page, yeah, where there's talk about lighting, and it's kind of the do photo looks, you know, like a high-end area. And on the one hand, it doesn't, what I'm getting at is that in our area, we're definitely feeling that there's a need for more lighting and some security cameras, which, so it's sort of like I'm imagining the way to describe that might be several layers of lighting, the different kinds of lighting that are performing different functions, but there may be some security lighting that's performing that function, but it's not the same as the lighting you would want for your storefront. So there might be something on the security page about lighting that's, I don't know.
Yep, I think you could have a note here in the lighting page about security being a layer of lighting, and then also have in the security page a note about lighting being an important consideration, just to reinforce that. Any other thoughts or concerns about security or lighting?
So Jesse, can I ask where the street lightings will be? I think they should be, later we will discuss that part, right, on the streetscape.
You know, I don't know that the streetscape category really went into lighting in great depth, but yeah, we can certainly pay attention to that when it comes. Yeah. Okay, I'll keep us moving. Materials and techniques for renovation and new construction. Higher quality materials and sustainable building strategies support the built and natural environment. Quality materials are not only more durable than cheaper alternatives, they create visual interest and support a cohesive mercantile environment. Similarly, renovations and new construction projects that prioritize energy and resource conservation are sound investments in the long-term vitality of the commercial corridor and beyond. Recommend incorporate the energy and resource conservation strategies like those included in the Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design LEED standards. Use brick masonry, wood, glass, metal, and stone. Other materials like clay, stone, or porcelain tiles are encouraged accents. Utilize appropriate repair and restoration techniques to ensure quality and durability of historic materials. Keep original material of historic buildings to the greatest extent practicable. Otherwise, use materials that are complementary to a building's original makeup and to adjacent buildings. Use materials near sidewalks and entrances that are highly durable and easily maintained. Discouraged is failing to properly insulate buildings for energy conservation, installing plywood, concrete block, false brick veneer, vinyl, or aluminum siding, using materials made to mimic exterior finish materials or to cover original architectural details, and building with brick that clashes with the color and type of original brickwork. Amy, I know you had a note about a stucco building or a brick building that was stuccoed over, and that being not desirable. So I do think there is a bullet here about kind of keeping original material or having any new materials be complementary. Do you think that would address that particular issue? And does anyone else have questions or concerns specific to materials? Okay. So new construction, site planning. So the site plan for new construction commercial buildings contributes to the evolving sense of place in Dundalk. Site planning guidelines consider how the building and landscape interface with the street and engage residents and patrons. These site planning guidelines pertain to larger commercial properties over an acre, not to the historic and denser commercial area at the north end of the commercial revitalization district. So I did try to distinguish here that this kind of criteria is really about like Logan Village and other more contemporary properties that are further south of the Main Street area. So it's recommended to develop for high quality mixed use comprised of commercial, residential, office, and entertainment uses. Plan community plazas, courtyards, patios, and pedestrian walkways on the property wherever appropriate. These spaces should be accessible to members of the community both physically and visually. When a commercial property is located far back from the street, encourage small freestanding establishments such as a food truck or a coffee stand to provide a street front presence. If a bus stop along the subject property is present, you can incorporate it with the proposed freestanding establishment. Accommodate pedestrians, and so this would be a great one for Logan Village because there is a bus stop in front. Accommodate pedestrians and cyclists with new commercial site layouts. Construct new buildings on or near property lines. Incorporate electric vehicle charging stations, solar panels, and native landscaping. Planning on-site surface parking between the front property line. What is discouraged is planning on-site surface parking between the front property line and the building, developing in an auto-centric way that detracts from pedestrian engagement, and developing with large setback distances between storefront and the public right-of-way. So you can see a community plaza here as the recommended image and kind of a drive-through establishment as being discouraged. So I took a lot of liberty here, so please, speak up if you have concerns or other ideas.
I just want to make a quick comment. That would be a really cool design, I know you got it for a bus stop, but in the shopping center, we have this ugly thing that's been covered, and the homeless like to use it a lot. But it would be nice if we could take the cover down and put something like that in that's more architecturally attractive. Do you know what I'm talking about, Amy? That I forget what that.
You're talking about the pavilion in Veterans Park?
Yeah, that's it.
I mean, we've been back and forth with Rec and Parks over the years about replacing that because it's, and they don't want to remove it. And then we've also submitted proposals to them for actually painting murals on those large sort of brutalist style columns that are there.
Right.
We haven't heard back about the status of that proposal either,
Yeah.
but
Well, maybe
in
we
an
can.
effort to beautify that.
Yeah, maybe you can do another proposal submitting something like that design to give them some ideas or suggestions. I think it would look very attractive over there. Very attractive, especially with all the trees we have, you know, over in Veterans Park. Anyway, it's just my comment.
No, thank you. Definitely making a note of it. And, you know, the idea is that if there is major redevelopment that occurs, that this would be something that the design review panel would recommend as part of their review. So it's important that it's something you guys want to see. Any other thoughts, ideas? Okay. So infill. Infill is the process of developing vacant or underutilized properties in a denser urban area. New buildings developed with existing infrastructure can affect the appearance and functionality of neighboring properties. The following criteria is designed to ensure the setback, scale, and height of new construction is compatible with the surrounding commercial environment. These infill guidelines apply to the historic, more established northern section of Dundalk's commercial revitalization district. So it's recommended to develop in vacant or abandoned properties, maintain the same setback with new buildings as existing adjacent buildings. So if adjacent buildings have different setbacks from each other, the new building will align with the storefront situated closest to the front of the property line. This will ensure that blank side facades are not visible to the public. Ensure the height and scale of new buildings relate to the height and scale of surrounding buildings. This includes the scale of building elements such as relative size of windows and doors. Allow mixed use in buildings with multiple stories such as office or residential on the second and third story. And discouraged are allowing side facades to be visible to Main Street pedestrians, disregarding the height and scale of surrounding buildings with a new building, and clashing architectural styles such as a modern building next to a historic one or a federal style next to Italianate. This was a recommendation from one of the readers. So yeah, any thoughts about infill and the images or the bullets within them? Okay.
And the one thing I would say is that in our historic Main Street, there's already quite a mix of architectural styles and eras. And so I think that it could be possible that you might want to allow for, you know, two styles next to each other that don't perfectly line up.
Yeah, and I think that's a practice of the DRP often too, is that they encourage that the buildings complement each other, but not one style, like a new building, not necessarily try and mimic the historic one. So we may want to reword that a little bit.
And I agree, Lori, this is Marta. They can be kind of from a previous experience working with design review panel, they looking for mixing styles, but each project is very different. And the one that I shared with Jesse was recently approved in Catonsville. It had a lot of historic character, but the building itself was very modern. So it was really depends on the project. I would also suggest to reword a little bit that discouraged the ones that you highlighted, Jesse.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I will definitely reword that, and certainly, you know, you're right. There is already a lot of architectural mixing, so this could be confusing.
And another comment, your first paragraph about infill, third sentence is compatible with surrounding commercial environment. Is that just with commercial or residential also?
Oh, good point. Yeah, I think you would want to. Well, I don't know. What do other folks think?
Depends what is in the area. If we have, like, for example, 1-story residential building and someone is proposing commercial development and it's like 7-8 stories, for example, I'm just
Yeah, I think I think we don't want to suggest that things have to be exactly the same, but that there not be such a jarring contrast that there's a high rise next to 2-story row homes. So I think, you know, higher density on a major corridor makes sense, but it's unlikely you'd go from 2-story row homes to 10-story high rises. If
Yeah.
the market demanded that suddenly in Dundalk, that would be interesting, but anyway.
No, that's great feedback. And yeah, I guess with infill, it could affect, you know, it could be maybe a residence on one side and then a commercial property on the other, you know, but there is that's important to consider. Any other ideas? Okay. So identity and culture. Dundalk's commercial corridor is a source of important history and pride. Public art and murals can serve as an ongoing educational tool and foster a sense of local identity. It strengthens the connection between people and the places they share and creates a unique and memorable shopping experience. It's recommended to accommodate approved murals on blank side and rear walls. Design new construction buildings with architectural details that add distinction, texture, and character to the facade. Renovate buildings in a way that maintains existing architectural details. Post approved welcome signage and/or public art in gateways or public right-of-ways that serve as the entry and exit to the Dundalk commercial corridor. This will foster a sense of place. It's discouraged to prohibit mural or artistic distinction on a blank, highly visible wall. Installing public art in the right-of-way that is vulnerable to damage from vehicles. And installing murals and public art that have not gone through a community approval process. So I heard the comments about, it'd be so great if we had this blank wall, with a mural, but the owner doesn't want to do anything to it. So this provides a little bit of, some support for community murals. And also I heard the comment about, maybe a gateway sculpture in like the Dundalk Avenue traffic circle. That's unprotected is not a great idea because it'll get, run right over. So I tried to show an example of what you don't want to happen there. Any thoughts or comments? Okay. Streetscape. Okay, so the streetscape refers to the transportation corridor that includes the street, the sidewalk, and parking areas. These spaces accommodate pedestrian, cycling, and vehicular traffic. They also serve as a venue for many other functions such as social gatherings, landscaping, outdoor dining, and window shopping. The main objective of these streetscape guidelines is to foster a public realm that is inviting, enjoyable, and safe for all people. And you kind of got this before and after image of a typical, auto-centric corridor versus, what could be with some more streetscape design. Are folks okay with this image? Okay. So traffic calming. Reducing vehicular traffic speeds makes the pedestrian environment feel safer and more inviting. Slower traffic speeds also enable increased driver awareness of retail offerings in the commercial corridor. So it's recommended to locate crosswalks at all intersections and areas where increased pedestrian convenience is desirable. Utilize accent paving such as brick or colored concrete, as well as crosswalk signage to increase visibility of the crosswalks. Use bump outs at intersections and in areas where more pedestrian traffic is desirable. Bump outs are extensions of the curb that narrow the street to reduce traffic speeds and the distance pedestrians have to walk to cross the street. Develop protected bike lanes to reduce the need for local vehicular use and slow traffic by narrowing vehicular lanes. Bicycle lanes should be protected with spacing from traffic, curbs, bollards, landscaping, or flex flags. And you can see flex flags here to provide some protection for this biker. It's discouraged to plan oversized vehicular lanes, maintaining streets with no sidewalk or bicycle lane, and leaving crosswalks that are difficult to see, like shown here. Any ideas, recommendations, concerns about traffic calming?
I think we'd love to see it, but in the past, we've been told no because of port use of Dundalk Avenue and Dundalk Avenue being an evacuation route so that the road couldn't be narrowed at all. But I think it'd be great to pursue it, so.
I agree. This is Jess Lilly. I know I haven't said too much, but I live on Dundalk Avenue with some of the businesses, and I can 100% tell you as a resident, this is something that everyone complains about. And she's right. We were just told no. So it would definitely be worth pursuing for us.
Thank you, very helpful input. And maybe this, having it codified in this document will help to sway things. Avenue and emergence. So the fact that it's an emergency route.
I mean, you may want to check so that you're not recommending something that's completely incompatible and therefore you just look stupid or something, like it's
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean? But if there's a way to encourage, I mean, there's no streetcar going down the middle of the road anymore. So it really shouldn't need to be that friggin' wide, but.
Well, you would think that, but living here, the big trucks come up and they use both lanes.
Yeah.
So I think that was another factor of
yes,
why it couldn't be changed going from 695 to 95, and it's almost nightly. So, that there's a escort and a big truck is going through. So I'm sure that has something to do with it as well, but still, I'm on board.
It's something that needs to be explored and probably need to talk with the port administration about what's going on there and what they're requiring and why they can't do that on a different road, that sort of thing.
Really helpful background. Thank y'all. And I will do some more research into this. I certainly don't want to have us incorporating ideas that are incompatible. And it seems like you guys have already been pushing on this. So I'll do some digging. Any other ideas or concerns? All right, green infrastructure and landscaping. We're almost done, guys. Thanks for sticking with me. Green infrastructure refers to the landscaping and other tools used to absorb and filter stormwater runoff from hardscape like streets, sidewalks, and parking lots. In addition to reducing pollution leading to Dundalk's waterfront, green infrastructure like rain gardens and street trees have many other benefits like improving air quality, reducing urban heat, and calming traffic. Well-maintained green infrastructure in combination with decorative landscaping like flower pots make a commercial Main Street more resilient and inviting. It's recommended to plant regularly pruned street trees in sidewalks and parking lots with tree pits adequately sized for healthy growth. Incorporate stormwater treatment or decorative landscaping into traffic calming measures. For example, bump outs can also be rain gardens. As you see in this picture here, this is a bump out. Use native plants and trees for decorative and functional landscaping. Discouraged is leaving trees unpruned, allowing for low-lying branches that obscure storefront visibility or pedestrian passage, using exotic or invasive plants for decorative and green infrastructure landscaping, and failing to properly maintain any landscaping. Any comments about this page? Are the visuals okay? And this isn't a great visual of like a rain garden, but I liked that it had kind of multiple uses. You have trees, you have the bump out, you have a crosswalk, someone on a bike. Just seemed to hit a lot of those key points. Okay, I'll move on. So for street furniture describes a range of equipment in the public right-of-way, including cafe seating, street lighting, there we go, Emery, benches, bike racks, planters, and public trash cans. Quality and conformity guidelines for street furniture help maintain a cohesive commercial environment that accommodates the different community activities. It's recommended to install street furniture made of high quality materials that convey a sense of permanence and security. Allow for pedestrian through traffic with cafe seating arrangements in the right of way. If cafe seating is not permanently installed, neatly stack and store chairs and tables inside or next to the building when the restaurant is closed. Secure stationary furniture like street lights, public benches, and trash cans to the ground, and ensure uniformity in color palette and material. Group street furniture together for placemaking and to accommodate pedestrian traffic. Install street furniture on sidewalks, on wide sidewalks, and install bike racks, especially at establishments that have parking lots. If a bus stop is present along the subject property, incorporate it with the street furniture. And discouraged is using plastic folding furniture that is non-durable and appears cheap, having street furniture that clashes with surrounding furniture and storefronts, and utilizing street lighting that renders an unnatural color, such as sodium vapor lamps, as shown in the picture. So, yeah, we don't really talk about security too much with street lighting, although it does say that it should be of high quality material and kind of the color of the lighting. I don't know if we want to add a bit about security street lighting here as well. Or any other ideas or
I don't know.
comments?
Yeah, I think it's more like in this sort of it's not a facade issue, but it's sort of, where I see it in the Main Street is, yeah, it would be like a business mounting some lighting to the front of their building that isn't about displaying their sign or illuminating their storefront, but it's about lighting the sidewalks a little bit brighter so that people felt safer at night and so that cameras could, I don't know how to talk about that in a way that doesn't make it encourage something that looks, I don't know, so lit up that it looks like, oh, this must be a high crime area or something, but I feel like I would need to look at visual pictures to help me put the words right, but lighting in Dundalk is really low in general, and I think that some lighting for security and helping to encourage a greater sense of safety could be useful.
Yeah, that's a good point to think about what else the businesses could do to not just illuminate their building, but also illuminate the surrounding area.
It gives a greater sense of that there are eyes on the street.
Yeah.
Even if there aren't really yet.
I will, I'll add a bit about that if other folks agree that that's a good idea.
How about the idea of lighting up some of the trees? Maybe not halfway like we do in Towson, but like the whole tree.
Yeah, we've done some of that too, and yeah, I mean, sadly, some of it comes down to where's the outlet and who's paying for it.
Yeah.
Hate to say it, but that's a practical problem, practical issue. I think encouraging that, you know, so having something about encouraging that, again, it's more layers of lighting.
Right.
That aren't exactly about shining a spotlight on some imagined criminal, but are overall going to create a sense of safety and so.
Right. Well, yeah, something that's kind of more at the pedestrian level as opposed to these big.
I hear you. So, and even uplights
Yeah.
on trees, even maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, and Emery provided some good language here. So lighting will create an active evening environment. Yeah. Along the road, as well as help produce a safer, well-lit shopping environment. So this is, yeah, Emery can help me wordsmith this. All right. Any other thoughts about lighting or street furniture? Sorry, and lighting. Okay.
I just wanted to make a quick comment that looked like styrofoams.
These two?
Musical.
They
It would
do
be
look
kind
really
of cool if they could be created that way with, you know, the little things hanging off of them and kids could come around and play them, and I don't know.
Yeah, I'll make a note that, you know,
It's just cute. It
creative.
could be a two for one deal, a musical instrument as well as a place to sit.
I like it. We can just say creativity is encouraged. And I think, yeah, I think in like on the waterfront in Baltimore City, there is a park that has like some furniture that's also instruments, and the kids love it. So that is.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it's a good idea.
Also, in particular, the Dundalk Shopping Center or the Historic Town Center is right by the elementary school. So that actually is a really good idea. A lot of the kids walk home that way.
I am gonna make a note about xylophone street furniture. I'm shocked that I spelled that correctly.
Yeah, it looks correct.
Okay. Any other ideas?
No.
Parking lot. Although parking lots are sometimes an essential part of the commercial environment, they can also create dead space that is underutilized and uninviting. Parking lot design should be aesthetically inviting and promote safe interaction between vehicles, bikes, and pedestrians. In addition, measures should be taken whenever possible to address the environmental degradation caused by large impervious footprint of the large impervious footprint of parking lots. So it's recommended to incorporate green infrastructure like pervious pavement, canopy tree islands, and rain gardens. Install solar arrays and electric vehicle charging stations. Include pedestrian pathways for safe and easy access from sidewalk and parked vehicles to the storefront. Make existing oversized parking lots available for community events and festivities like a farmer's market or a food truck festival. Install bike racks and ensure that there is appropriate lighting for nighttime security. It's discouraged to prohibit public use of underutilized or unutilized parking lots. Maintain parking lots that are devoid of landscaping, environmental considerations, and pedestrian pathways, and failing to properly light parking lots for nighttime security. So you see, very matured trees in a parking lot, providing lots of shade so your car doesn't get too hot, versus, kind of what you see at Logan Village, which is a lot of parking lot with the storefront, way back recessed. Any additions or thoughts or removals that should happen here?
Jesse, we may want to incorporate a recommendation of adding bumper stops and or protective bollards in the direct area of the storefronts, just as a recommendation.
Oh, good point. Yeah, I didn't think about that.
And Jesse, this is just a thought, maybe outdoor movie nights, movie theaters from communities.
Yeah, I can add that as an example. Yeah, it's fun to think of all the things you could do in a parking lot instead of parking in it. Anything else?
Is there any thoughts, maybe like, this is just example, but sorry, what I was going to propose, ice rinks, maybe.
Say that again. Ice rink?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, we could definitely maybe adding a list of lots of examples here could inspire interesting new development. Any other thoughts or ideas? Oh my gosh, we made it. That's the end of the guidelines. So instead of having the appendix here, we will just incorporate, have the facade guidelines be a part of this, and they'll be referenced. And so what I'll do next is incorporate all of these comments, share it back out with you in an email, and then we need to think about how we're going to do a community meeting with community members providing feedback and being able to see this before it's then proposed to the planning board. So I can get this turned around probably by the end of the week, and I'll send that in an email. Please review it over the following week and provide any final comments. And then I guess the timeline that we're looking at for adoption, notes here, is So this would go before the this would be introduced to the planning board and then have a public hearing and then a vote. And so it's to be introduced to the planning board June 3rd. And then there will be a vote June 17th. So as long as we can have the community meeting, you know, with ample time for that June 3rd deadline. So maybe the first or second week of May, we could do a community meeting. How have folks been able to gather community members in a virtual setting? Because I can certainly, you know, I'm going to rely on you all to help to spread the word, and I can certainly push it out.
I think we've several of the people on this call have, you know, done virtual meetings with decent sized groups of people, 30 to 50 people in some cases. And so I think as long as there's time to get the word out, have some notification in the Eagle, maybe what would be helpful would be to have some sort of informational article in the Dundalk Eagle leading up to the public meeting, possibly. I don't know if they'd be willing to do that, but that might be helpful. And then, you know, we can certainly, everybody who's on this call can certainly be getting the word out to their different constituencies.
What is a good date? And maybe I could do a doodle later, but sometimes it's just easier to capture you all while I have you. All right, do you think like, so a Monday evening, would that be like a Monday at 6, same as we have been doing? Would that make sense for a community meeting?
Either of those would work for us. We couldn't do the May 13th.
Okay. So not May 13th, but maybe one of the Mondays before or after that. Okay. And
Real quick, the Monday before is the day after Mother's Day, and I don't know if that makes a difference, but a lot of people travel. I don't know if that makes any difference, but I just figured it was worth mentioning.
okay. I should probably look at a calendar here. So in that case,
May 3rd or May 17th.
I think we should aim for May 3rd. Or, well, okay, May 3rd or May 17th. I'm gonna ponder that and I'll follow up with you all. Does anyone have an issue with May 3rd or May 17th? Okay. Then, yeah, let me think on that for just a moment and talk with Lori and Amy, and I'll follow up on one of those days. And then, yeah, thank you for the recommendation to reach out to the Dundalk Eagle. I'll definitely see if they can help get the news out. And in terms of, I guess it would just be kind of a similar review. We would share out the guideline draft in advance so folks can see it, and provide a venue for folks to give their feedback and answer questions. So I'll think more about that agenda, but if anyone has ideas on how that meeting should be run, please, you know, feel free to follow up. And I know I'm 30 minutes over. I knew I would be, but thank you all for sticking with me. And I'll get this turned around ASAP.
Thank you, Jesse.
Yeah, thank you all. Okay. Have a good evening.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Thank you, Jesse. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night, Jesse. Thank you.
Good night.